Ever felt your thoughts were a mess of tangled Christmas lights? Some ideas flashes, others just stay dark, and you just can't figure out the pattern. Now imagine walking into a clinic desperate for an answer, only to have doctors listen, nod, scribble, and only to say, oh, it's undifferentiated schizophrenia. The word wasn't just a label, it was a shorthand for we know something serious is happening, but we have no idea where it truly fits. For decades, this diagnosis became psychiatry's ultimate junk drawer under the World Health Organization's global manual, the ICD-10. It left patients, families, and even seasoned professionals wrestling with minds so creative in distress, yet so stubborn in their refusal to be neatly categorized. Schizophrenia affects about 0.3 to 0.7% of the worldwide population, and for many this mystery subtypes was their reality. Let's rewind to before the major shift. The ICD-10, the International Classification of Diseases number 10, the global standard for health information used by the World Health Organization's member states, lists several schizophrenia subtypes: paranoia, schizophrenic, catatonic, and the ultimate grab bag, undifferentiated. If your symptoms screamed schizophrenia but wouldn't fit neatly into any other box, you landed here. It was the diagnostic equivalent of miscellaneous. This isn't just history, it's a crucial insight into the challenges clinicians faced in diagnosing and treating schizophrenia, a disorder profoundly impacting millions. The undifferentiated label told us more about our category's limits than about the person across the desk.
Why was the box needed?
So why create such a vague category? Back when the ICD-10 was being developed, global medicine sought order. There was a genuine desire for neat slots. National health statistics needed clear codes. Research grants required defined cohorts, and hospitals needed streamlined patient management. Pioneers like Kraepelin and Bleuler had introduced many complex descriptions, and clinicians yearned for a simple framework. Undifferentiated schizophrenia became a diagnostic holding pen, a placeholder for psychosis mixing hallucination, flat mood, chaotic speech, or odd movements without one dominant feature. The idea was noble: keep the other categories pure. The irony: in clinical practice, the paranoid and undifferentiated subtypes were the most frequently used, with undifferentiated soaking up every patient whose symptoms defied an easy fit. This highlighted a growing instability in the classification system.
The symptom soup.
To grasp the challenge, picture Maya. 1 month she hears whispers, not to trust blue. The next she stares blankly at a wall. For hours, thoughts too slippery to catch. Is she paranoid? Not quite. The voices aren't consistently persecutory. Well, then she must be schizophrenic. Sometimes her thoughts is disorganized, but she can still function. Catatonic only on specific days. Well, undifferentiated schizophrenia collected these complex edge cases. It was a constantly shifting symptom soup. Research showed us that its symptoms profile had massive overlap with other schizophrenia subtypes and with mood disorders. This overlap made the label unreliable, as patients could move from one subtype to another over time. It predicted very little about medication response or life trajectory. It was like navigating a dense fog with an invisible map.
The revolutionary research.
By the late 1990s and 2000s, large international studies began to hammer these subtypes. The scientific consensus grew that the subtypes had low diagnostic stability and little clinical utility in guiding treatments. When researchers controlled for symptom severity, outcomes for undifferentiated patients looked identical to paranoid or hypophrenic. If outcomes are the same, what's the point of distinct labels? Brain scans, genetics, and treatment response also failed to sort people into those neat columns. The subtypes simply lacked predictive validity. And if you want that in plain English, let's say they couldn't reliably predict a patient's future course or treatment response, and the diagnosis often changed over time. The scientific evidence screamed for change.
The lived reality of people with undifferentiated schizophrenia.
But beyond research, these diagnostic labels profoundly impacted real lives. Labels matters. When Myers' chart said undifferentiated, therapists might speak vaguely about managing symptoms instead of setting specific goals. Health authorities struggled to get clear data, seeing it more like a temporary parking ticket. Families struggled finding no support groups for undifferentiated, only for specific subtypes, leaving them feeling isolated. Patients internalized this ambiguity. Many felt like a diagnosis waiting to happen. They were in a perpetual limbo. And great studies showed us that uncertain labeling could increase stigma and lower self-esteem more than a clear, severe diagnosis could. The bucket category, intended to help, instead left countless people feeling adrift, unseen and unsupported.
The ICD-11, the next level of schizophrenia diagnosis.
Finally, the World Health Organization made a bold move. At the World Health Assembly in May 2019, it formally adopted the ICD-11, which came into effect on January 1st, 2022. In it, they dropped all schizophrenia subtypes. The decision was based on decades of data showing the subtypes lacked clinical utility and predictive validity. This wasn't a minor tweak, it was a seismic shift in global mental health diagnostics. The new paradigm treated schizophrenia as an undefined disorder. Instead of rigid boxes, clinicians now rate severity across key symptoms. And this mirrors how we approach conditions like autism or hypertension, recognizing ranges and nuances. And this demands individual care. And fun thing is that I started in psychiatry way before we got the ICD-11. And when I had my brief break, now I'm back, but when I had my brief break, we still haven't adopted the ICD-11 in Denmark. So, yeah, we are a little behind, unfortunately.
What replaces the mystery?
What does this new approach look like? Well, without the nebulous, undifferentiated label, clinicians describe precisely what they observe. The ICD-11 provides a framework for rating 6 symptom domains: positive symptoms, negative symptoms, depressive symptoms, manic symptoms, psychomotoric systems, and cognitive symptoms. A patient's chart might now read: Mrs. Lopez presented with schizophrenia with current severity of moderate positive symptoms and marked negative symptoms. That single specific sentence immediately tells the next doctor exactly which lever to pull for Mrs. Lopez. This might mean a dopamine partial agonist for hallucinations, and social skill training for negative symptoms. Research shows this dimensional approach significantly improves treatment planning and the ability to track changes over time. And crucially, patients report feeling seen as individuals with unique struggles rather than simply filed away under a genetic headline. It's a shift from the clinical shrug to clear, actionable plans.
The lingering lessons.
Even though undifferentiated schizophrenia is gone from the new global manual, its ghost still roams. It's a powerful reminder when scientific knowledge is thin. Our urge to classify can outrun the evidence. The World Health Organization's willingness to retire broken categories is a rare and courageous act in medicine, demonstrating admirable humility in the face of mind-bending complexity. This story also underscores why patients deserve clear explanations, not vague placeholders. Talk to anyone who carried that undifferentiated schizophrenia label, and they'll say the real diagnosis they needed was clarity. Often these patients will have a feedback that is, words like, tell me what's happening, what might help, and what hope looks like. That's a fundamental human need. No amount of diagnostic pigeonholing can replace. So did this story surprise you? If it opened your eyes a little, please hit that share button. Let's help more people understand why global psychiatric terms evolve. It's not confusion, it's a genuine progress. And I love to hear from you. Have you or someone you know been impacted by changing mental health labels? Your personal experience is invaluable and helps chip away the stigma surrounding these vital conversations. So leave your story in the comments. Because ultimately, the diagnosis that stumped experts wasn't some unique, elusive disease. It reflected the very edge of our psychiatric map. Retiring undifferentiated schizophrenia didn't shrink our knowledge, it expanded it, pushing clinicians to see symptoms, not stereotypes, and to treat people, not types. This evolution from a mysterious bucket in the ICD-10 to a precise dimensional spectrum in the ICD-11 is more than a textbook note. It's a profound promise that the next Maya who walks into a clinic won't be met with a shrug and a vague label, but with a clear, personalized plan, a sense of being understood, and a tangible path towards hope. And if you want to know more about schizophrenia, then check out my entire playlist on schizophrenia right here, and I look forward to seeing you right over there to talk much more with you about schizophrenia.